We're in for a fantastic evening of poetry, and I'm happy to introduce our first poet. Cracking open a collection of Rick Barrett's poems, the reader quickly discovers that Rick can be trusted to find the absolute beauty in the everyday. Whether it be a quiet memory of running errands with his family decades ago when they moved from bakery to hardware store to grocery, then to bank. Take his poem, The Singing, for example. The speaker is sitting in the waiting room at his mechanic shop waiting on news of his car repairs. This place is where most of us, we find only wasted hours and drudgery. But the speaker here quickly takes note of a woman looking into her phone, quietly singing in a language he does not recognize. He writes, "It sounds like an African language. It's soft, registers, making me think the woman is singing a lullaby or a nostalgic song about a landscape. Though, for all I know, she might be singing about a war or the clanging streets of a city." What I love about Rick Barrett's work is his seemingly endless generosity of spirit that he extends to his reader. There's a vulnerability there. There's a tenderness, a regard for his reader that I've rarely seen. His is a poetry of witness and memory, and he strives to get every single detail just right, just as he saw it. Barrett underlines this craft in his poem To Jay. He writes, "We must gather images to construct truths. And these truths oftentimes come as just as much a surprise to the writer as to the reader, as he confides with the careful honesty and diligence of a friend leaning in and detailing his experiences as if across a table." Rick Barrett was born in the Philippines. He grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's published 5 books of poetry, including The Darker Fall, which won the Catherine A. Morton Prize. His latest book is Moving the Bones. He's received fellowships from all the best places, the Guggenheim Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts. In 2020, he received the Shelley Memorial Award from the Poetry Society of America. And I could go on. His poems and essays have also appeared in all the best publications, Poetry, the Paris Review, the New Yorker. You get it. You get it. We got the best here tonight. Barrett lives in Tacoma, Washington, and teaches at Pacific Lutheran University. So those are the facts there. Everyone, please help me welcome Rick Barrett to Poetry Attack.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Is that good? Okay. Travis, thank you so much. I always know I've gotten a good introduction when I feel incredibly embarrassed. And so thank you for the embarrassment, Travis.
Anytime.
Yeah. And also, thank you so much to Victoria Chang for the invitation to be here. And I know that you all know what an amazing poet and literary citizen she is and how lucky you all are to have her here. So thank you very much to Victoria. And really big thanks to the Knespel family for sponsoring this reading and also for their generosity towards poetry. Thank you very much, Ken and Amy. And lastly, I have just met and fallen in love with Marie Howe, a writer whose work I have loved for decades. And it's really rare to meet somebody who you admired from afar, and you meet them and they're even better and deeper and more complicated and funnier than you imagined they would be. It's so great to be reading with you, Marie. Okay, let me get my timer started, and then I'm going to read. So I'm going to start by reading some poems from Moving the Bones, and then end with maybe a couple of new poems. So I'll start with poems that you're going to find in my recent book. And the first poem that I will read is the opening poem in the book, and it is called Pleasure. You are told to believe in one paradise, and then there's the paradise you come to know. The shoes lined up in pairs by the door, and the herd moving with its mysterious intent across a dark plain. The blue of the sky, which is the zenith of all colors, and the love of the man in the next room, strong and rough as a hog's back. My mind has a slow metabolism. It is slow to understand what anything means, but it understands that if you look at something long enough, it will have something to say to you. The sun that is strangely bright on some days, like a poisoned canary, and the crop of winter rocks thrown up in a meadow in April. Learning decades later the name of the hospital where you were born, and watching the child eat a mango as though it is time he is eating, time shining on his lips. On fewer days, I agree with the poet who dreaded being the wrong person in the right world. And I believe in adhesion, in never showing up empty-handed, even if the pleasure I know best is fused with the abject. There is always the other side of the heart, its coaxing. You are here. You can begin again. You can rise. A text just came up from my mom. Probably checking in to see that I'm doing a good job. So the middle section of this book is a series of prose poems that I wrote during the pandemic. And it both feels like we're very far away from that, but also still in it somehow. So I wanted to read some sections of that poem. And you'll know, so there are 30 poems in the section, and they all begin with the phrase "during the pandemic." So you'll know that I've begun a new poem when I start with that phrase. During the pandemic. During the pandemic, I thought of abstract art. Abstract art, the art historian claimed, was the most democratic kind of art because it allowed for anyone's interpretations, anyone's feelings. You didn't have to know anything to get it. For instance, the canvas that was painted uniformly black could be open-ended and be a consensus at the same time, like a plague. During the pandemic, I watched the weather. The sky brought forth its clean clouds. The trees put forth their green like store awnings. You could go online and look at places in every weather. I loved best the weather that was ours. Rain that fell so hard, it sounded like a crowd. Ours, like a postcard in the mail or the sparklers on a cake. It was spring. It was a rash season. Then the sun on everything. The sun never knew how great it was, the architect said, until it hit the side of a building. During the pandemic, I fixed on each fear. Each fear was its own fastidiousness. My mother and her fear of the ocean, not even a touch of it, not even her feet in the tender edge of surf. My friend and his fear of tunnels, the tunnels he went through with his eyes closed. When we went outside, we wore latex gloves, the colors of Easter. We stood apart in the mandated distance, like the remaining pieces at the end of a game of chess. During the pandemic, I kept a list of possible symptoms on the refrigerator door. From a distance, it looked like a shopping list, an ersatz normalcy. Fever instead of flour, cough instead of bacon, fatigue instead of milk. With each day, the slippages proliferated. Hospital instead of hospitality, projections instead of protections, virus instead of virtue. Asymptomatic veered towards asymptote, an intimate infinity between them. During the pandemic, I knew we were in a period of interval, so I considered what an interval meant. The interval we were in was not like swinging in a hammock on a warm afternoon. It was not like making a lesson plan to be taught. It was not even like being inside a car wash and its cleansing tempest. It was more like lucky speech in the middle of Beckett's play, its torrent of rage and grief, after which the rating, which was the point after all, resumed. During the pandemic, I wanted to take up as little space as possible. Wake, wash, eat, clean, watch, lie. I wanted my habits reduced to a ritual of monosyllables. A skull is a beautiful structure and used to waiting, the painter said. I admired the painter's suave severity, his grim style. Now that isolation and obedience were what I knew of refuge. Just a couple more of these pandemic poems. During the pandemic, I went outside as into an abstraction. Every body a vector, every public space a possible inflection point, the very air a moral injury. But there was no abstracting this. The bus driver died, the shoemaker, the chef, the playwright, the nurses and the doctors, the ambassador, the princess, the leader of the band, the scholar of Derrida. During the pandemic, I praised the cherry blossoms. I praised my lungs. I praised crying. I praised the faces of my students checkerboarded on the computer screen. I praised the curses I gave to those who deserved them. I praised coffee. I praised ventilators. I praised the people gathered on the rooftop of a nearby building, laughing as they looked up at the night sky. So those are the pandemic poems. I hope they weren't too traumatizing for you all. I read these poems where a friend of mine, the poet Marianne Baruch, was in the audience, and she said to me afterwards, "Those poems are like bummer literature." And I realized that's really what all of poetry is. So I wanted to read the title poem for the book, Moving the Bones. And there's a true anecdote that led to the writing of this poem. As Travis mentioned, I was born in the Philippines, and my mom's side of the family is from this small city where generations and generations of the family have been. And there's a whole area of the cemetery where our relatives are all buried. But there are gravestones there that are a couple of hundred years old. They're really effaced. And so there was a initiative among the contemporary members of the family to build a mausoleum where all of them could be gathered and the family could be brought together. And this just astonished me as an endeavor that the family was going through. And I wanted to write about it. This is called Moving the Bones. There are too many ancestors, so we are gathering their bones. The poor ones, their graves broken by the roots of trees, the ones whose headstones have been weathered as blank as snowdrifts. We have bought the wide plot, we have built the mausoleum, and now we fill it with the bones. The ones killed in the monsoon floods, the one buried in her wedding dress, the one buried with his medals. Because there will be a time when we cannot keep track of them, scattered in the cemetery like prodigals, we collect their bones. The ones whose faces I can still recall, the ones who have been dead for 100 years, we collect their bones. At each opened grave, we think about the body taking its shape as father, sister, cousin, uncle. We hunger for the story of each figure. We hold the bones, though we know memory is mostly forgetting, or memory is the sweeper who clears the sidewalk each morning, or memory is the broom. The mausoleum is marble, white as certain roses, and shaped like a house. There's room for everyone we will put there. The rich ones, their gravestones glowing with gold paint. The infants with sweet names. We open their graves. We move their bones. Look back far enough, and your family becomes unfamiliar, a circle of people with a fading circumference. When I think of it long enough, home becomes a confusion of birthplace, hometown, country, and nation. We walk through the cemetery, we point to our own, and we gather their bones. Maybe memory is a desperate Pharaoh who commands that the things of this life go with him into the next. I would take with me the books I love best, a jar of the ocean spanning my 2 countries, a slip of my lover's sunny hair. I would take with me a sack of rice, my mother's orange shawl, the robe my father wears in the kitchen at night, drinking a glass of water, that we might go just to one place to worship them, to wonder at who they were. We are moving their bones, our tribe of eros and vinegar, our black hair, our ordinary minds. Holding the bones, we say the names of the dead, the music of the syllables, conjuring the hearts they answered to. We hold the bones, each stern skull, each proud sternum, each elegant rib, curved like a horizon. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm going to close with a couple of poems from a new manuscript that I just finished, and it's a book of prose poems. And the first one of these is called The Cellists. For a few months, I lived in a place that was cold. When I stood at the front door, in the foreground, I saw a lawn covered with snow. In the middle ground, a house being built, and in the background, mountains that were white and craggy, like clean teeth. The house being built was a box of raw yellow wood. The sky was blue one day and like marble the next, expressing definite moods. At night, the snow swirled exactly as in a shaken globe. Like a row of bronze sculptures, there was a line of dead sunflowers along a fence. The trees were empty. The trees were hunched. One part of my mind always had its eyes closed, thinking about you. I didn't have a purpose but waiting, like an unfinished house, to straighten, to stir, to shovel. Tasks rose up and rankled in me, like cellists leaning in unison to turn the page on the music stand, only to find the next page blank. This is the last poem, and it's called Ghosts. When he asked me why I kept writing about people in my past, people who were irredeemably gone, I said it wasn't that I wanted those people returned to me or that I still longed for them. The longing had to do with being returned to the most intense versions of myself, the wistful self, the devastated self, the joyous self, the hungry self. The poems were a kind of bridge between the self that yearned for messy collisions with others and the self that wanted to be adamantly alone. The poems showed what was between the social and the solitary. As for the people in those poems, they were only traces. They were ghosts. And like ghosts, they were beyond love. Love is about those in front of you. Love is about those who are there. It turns out you don't get to love the ones you want. You love the ones who stay. Thank you all so much.